The following is a presentation on Bernie Madoff, the man who executed the largest Ponzi scheme in history, by myself, Ariel Small. Bernard L. Madoff was born in Queens, New York in 1938 to a Jewish immigrant family. Growing up, his family struggled financially, which could be a major cause in why Madoff became so money-hungry and strived to be successful. Madoff attended the University of Alabama and transferred to Hofstra University, where he completed his further education in 1960. As previously mentioned, Madoff was a college graduate. He achieved a degree in political science. Shortly after completing his degree, Madoff formed his investment business, which was called Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, LLC. Madoff was new to his career and faced his first speed bump during the 1962 market crash. At the time of the crash, Madoff had invested $30,000 for clients that ended up flopping, and he lost all of their money. Rather than coming clean with his clients about his mistake, Madoff turned to his father-in-law to borrow the $30,000 lost, in which he paid back his clients. At the time, Madoff did not tell the truth about the matter to his clients, which made it seem like he successfully navigated the market crash, and this built his reputation and got his name spread. As the 1970s approached, a recession began, which caused pricing to rise nationally. During this era, Madoff made the decision to move his business to Wall Street to further his business even more. As his business boomed, Madoff hired his brother Peter to work alongside him in the business. Peter and Madoff worked together as technology began to progress and helped to form NASDAQ and the NASD, which are electronic services that help investors to buy and sell trades much quicker than traditional ways. Madoff's father-in-law, whom he worked closely with, passed away towards the end of the 70s. Due to this, Madoff ended up working with his father-in-law's accountants named Avellino and Bienes. The pair were referring clientele to Madoff for a fee, and they fraudulently obtained money with the help of Madoff doing the same. Madoff was able to move his family to a very nice neighborhood in Long Island by the end of the 70s, which is where he truly began to see his American dream unfold. In the 80s, Madoff moved his business from the prominent area of Wall Street to a further step up of the Lipstick Building in Midtown Manhattan. Madoff continued to hire family members such as his wife and sons, and held a very close-knit community of employees, many of whom worked for Madoff for 30 or more years. In 1987, Black Monday ensued, which was the sudden global stock market crash. During this crash, many investors would not return calls to clients and stayed quiet to save themselves. On the contrary, Madoff was one of very few investors who continued his work and persevered through the crash, which yet again created an even more amazing reputation for himself. However, it is unknown how much money was lost to Madoff's risk at this time. The 90s were steady for Madoff overall. He continued thriving in his market maker business and investment business. However, his colleagues Avellino and Bienes were tipped off and caught in their fraud. Due to this, Madoff was investigated by the SEC. Madoff hired someone to create fake documents for the SEC, and he was able to trick them into believing the information provided was accurate. Madoff obtained a large amount of clients from Avellino and Bienes at this point because they trusted Madoff. This was a huge missed opportunity for the SEC and could have saved a tremendous amount of harm to Madoff's clients. In 2008, the housing market crash began, and this is also when the crash of Madoff began as well. At this time, Madoff's clients wanted their money back, and nothing Madoff could do could get his clients to follow his tricks. Madoff confessed his crimes to his sons, who then turned Madoff into the FBI and SEC. Madoff was arrested and eventually pleaded guilty to various frauds. Madoff paid bail initially and requested a continuance of bail after his guilty plea, but was denied by the judge. He was ultimately sentenced to 150 years in prison and forced to forfeit his $170 million in assets to pay back clients. Although this did not put a dent in the billions of dollars he frauded his clients of. Madoff eventually died in prison in 2021. When most people consider a traditional criminal, they probably initially think of the image below, possibly an individual with tattoos, scary demeanor, and maybe low intelligence. However, white-collar criminals are quite the opposite. As the image above represents, most white-collar criminals are successful, older white men who seem to have a lot of money, such as Madoff. White-collar crimes are not reported nearly as much as traditional types of crimes. This can be due to a number of reasons. The primary reason for this is that the victims, which are typically businesses and companies, have a fear of shame and poor publicity. Oftentimes, these businesses would rather keep these cases under wraps to make them look like they would be intelligent enough to avoid being victims of these crimes. Additionally, there is a difficulty categorizing these crimes because one person can have a perspective of what one crime is and another individual can feel differently. For instance, one person can see fraud as something and another person can see fraud as something completely different. Frauds and Ponzi schemes have continued to rise over time, but more specifically since the end of COVID. In 2022, investment scams caused more than $3.8 billion in losses to consumers, which was more than double the amount from 2021 at $1.8 billion in losses. As for Ponzi schemes, there was an estimated loss amount of $5.3 billion in 2022, and the majority of these losses were surrounded around cryptocurrency. In 2022, there was at least one detected Ponzi scheme per week and a total amount of 600 years in prison sentenced to the schemers. Since the Madoff scheme, the SEC has cracked down on few policies. The Commission furthered a focus on protecting clients' assets and required advisors and firms to release more information on their finances. There was also an implementation of an electronic service that allowed individuals to provide complaints and tips about possible frauds that helped the Commission detect these crimes. These are the references provided in my slides. Thank you for listening.